Humble yourself, and God will exalt you. Many years ago, I studied NLP, neuro-linguistic programming. It was around the time when I had been running my coaching business. I started off teaching people how to do digital marketing. Before that, I was stuck in a job which I hated, where I felt like I wasn't being recognized for the talents, the skills, the gifts that I had to share. So I saved up some cash, bought myself a van, moved to a distant city, and I started my own business. Now, to begin with, things went really well. I got involved with a group which taught me the art of high pressure selling, which I'd never really been exposed to before, kind of like Wolf of Wall Street stuff. And I would be making hundreds of phone calls, sometimes every week, calling people up who I'd managed to hook using a video ad on Facebook or somewhere else on the internet. And I'd be selling them into my program, which was all about helping them promote their business. And I went through this roller coaster ride of a very high peak of success. It was the first real success I'd ever tasted in my life at the age of 25. And I made a whole lot of money. Now, unfortunately, or maybe fortunately if you look at the bigger picture, I wasn't prepared to handle that much power, that much energy. And so an imposter syndrome, a self-sabotage pattern, a shadow aspect of myself kicked in and took over. And I started to decline that mountain which I had so briefly enjoyed. I crashed hard. It was around this time that I discovered Letting Go, the book by David Hawkins, which forever changed my life. However, I was still bound with desire, bound with lust. I was still hungry for success. I'd struggled through so many years of insecurity and depression and anxiety and feelings of worthlessness, largely due to, if I look at the root cause, wasting my sexual energy, not allowing it to build up inside of me, not allowing it to charge me up, not allowing it to express my full masculine capability. I'd been wasting it for years, over a decade at that point. And so I had to force myself to succeed using these external measures. I had to try and trick my way into success. I had to try and fool myself into believing that I was successful, when in reality, on the inside, I felt empty, insecure, weak. You see, when it comes to success in any shape or form, what I've begun to realize is that it's really got nothing to do with the external. We all know the classic example of people who win the lottery. who start off broke, in debt, they win the lottery, and within 5 years, 90% or higher are in the same or worse position than when they started. This is a spiritual journey we're on, my brothers. It doesn't matter what external accolades you accumulate if you're hollow inside. So as time went on and I became more interested in my own spiritual development and finding my way to true success without these temporary peaks followed by horrible crashes, I began to study more personal development, and I came across something called NLP, neuro-linguistic programming. I also began to study hypnosis, hypnotherapy, how to influence the mind, how to reprogram, how to rewire beliefs, how to change the mindset. This was the journey I was on. And so I went to a training. I ended up getting trained to the master practitioner level. And then I ended up getting trained to the trainer level so that I could then train others in neuro-linguistic programming, which, as I saw back then, was kind of like learning Jedi mind tricks. Now, I distinctly remember one of the things that I learned, which was so valuable to me, was about the nature of the unconscious mind. And they would teach us, don't call it the subconscious mind, because that carries with it a subtle suggestion that it is lower, below the conscious mind. You see, we learned in great depth about the nature of the unconscious, all of the ways that it can be influenced through words, through language, through suggestion, through images, through symbols. And these are the secrets that hidden societies have known about for millennia and used to their advantage, to control, to manipulate. And one of the things that we learned about the unconscious mind is that the unconscious is inherently moral. Your unconscious mind, which drives 99% plus of your behavior, is responsible for the way your body functions, looks. Your physical appearance is a product, is a direct result of the beliefs, ideas, concepts, emotions, which are held in your unconscious mind. This is not a thing to be taken lightly. This is the back end, the software, which is running your entire life. Your level of attraction, your income, your physical environment where you live, the kind of work you do every day, the kind of benefits you get to enjoy in your life. These are all a result of your unconscious mind. And being an inherently moral entity means that your unconscious is pre-programmed to behave in a way which is beneficial not just to you, but to others. How did this get there? What is the conscience that we hear of? What is this inborn desire to act in a way which is ethical? Pre-ethical, because ethical is a mental concept, whereas what we're talking about here is pre-cognitive. It's an automatic way of behaving which nature seems to have built into the psyche. If you strip away all of the conditioning and programming that society has poured into you since the time that you were born, what you will find is an inherently moral being, a being which naturally wants to act in a way that is for the highest good. Now, when we talk about God, the nature of God, this idea which has become so marred by religion, by those seeking to rob you of the inherent truth, by those seeking to empty your pockets and enslave you to a system of fear. We must be wary that we do not come under the dichotomy of gravitating to a rule-based, religion-based God, or simply discarding the concept of God altogether. This is the pendulum, if you're familiar with that concept. Reality transurfing. The pendulum where you get caught up under a spell of either embracing an erroneous notion or completely discarding the concept altogether. That's the pendulum which has been created to trap you in a false concept of God. But if we let go of all of those concepts and we simply recognize that in your unconscious, in your inherent knowing, your spirit, there is a knowing of an entity, of a higher power, of a source intelligence that can only be called God. Now, what you'll also begin to realize about yourself, about your unconscious, is that it is continually seeking to be consistent. What that means is, if you believe yourself to be a good person, then you're going to act in a way that supports that belief. This is the function of your unconscious. It's continuously trying to bring your life into a sense of wholeness, That's one of its presets. Now, when we're retaining our seed, our life essence, and not only retaining our life essence, but when we are committing ourselves to purify, to let go of this lower energy of lust, we're actually going through a process of humbling ourselves. We are practicing what the ancient Hermetic practitioners who descended from the teachings of Hermes Trismegistus, that ancient demigod who passed on so much of the spiritual traditions and knowledge that we have today, which is filtered out through all of these Aryan religions. If you want to know more about that, check out Robert Sefer, the world's most dangerous anthropologist. He talks about this in great depth. All of these religions we have in the world, whether it be Islam, Buddhism, Hinduism, Christianity, they descend from a common branch, a common root. And if you investigate the work of Hermes Trismegistus, he's getting pretty close to that root that our traditions have descended from. And what he said in one of his works, other than some phrases which you've probably heard before, such as within, so without, as above, so below, everything is polar, all truths are but half-truths. One of the things he said was that in order to gain the knowledge of the universe, the knowledge of God, these ancient practitioners practiced austerity of various different kinds. Austerity, to go without. To let go of certain comforts. To humble oneself through the act of fasting, isolation, physical practices, yoga, breathwork. But the most powerful was the austerity of abstinence from all sexual activity. And by this process, they attained knowledge of God. What you are doing is something that less than 1% of men are willing to do in any long-term capacity. You are humbling yourself. You are letting go of these notions that we need to chase, that we need to puff ourselves up, that we need to make our sexual presence obvious, known, that we need to stimulate ourselves sexually on a continuous basis, that we need to practice these lewd behaviors like masturbation in order to keep our prostate healthy. This is all by design to weaken you, to erode that inner sense of morality which doesn't come from without, but which is inbuilt into your nature, which is the reason you feel guilt, you feel shame when you do these practices. Animals have a mating season, and when in their natural environment, they rarely deviate from those natural seasons. But we've been taught to believe that we're meant to be in this state of sexual lasciviousness on an ongoing basis, which is how they turn us into human batteries. Drained, dependent, unassertive, unmasculine, weak. Now, as you go through this process of evolution, of ascension, of awakening, of remembering who you are, Most High, you're going to go through a series of tests where you unconsciously bring yourself into situations where you can exercise that lust if you choose to. And this will get more and more intense as you put aside the corn, as you put aside the self-stimulation, as you let go of the lustful thoughts. Then come the women. At first, ones that you're mildly attracted to, and as you let go of doing anything about that, I'm not saying that you shouldn't do anything when women start approaching you. But I'm saying that if you continually let go and you choose to retain your energy, then more attractive women will start to come to you. Many of them won't have any intention other than to take some of this energy for themselves. It's just nature. But you'll be tested on higher and higher levels. Maybe you'll commit to one. You'll reach a point where you want to share yourself with one particular woman, and then you'll be tested by other women. You see, your energy is rising and rising and rising. And in order to be granted great power, your unconscious mind will bring tests to you. You can look at this as God or your unconscious or Bigfoot. It doesn't really matter. This is going to happen. And as you continually humble yourself and don't latch on to these external tests, temptations, as you continually bring it back to non-attachment, being present, seeking not to glorify yourself, but to serve the highest good. This is what it means to humble yourself. This is what it means in Scripture when it says that being equal to God, Jesus thought it not robbery, but he humbled himself. Jesus Christ, the archetype, the pattern man, the example of what it means to awaken to God consciousness. That's the template that's been given to us in our Western culture. In the Eastern cultures, they have Krishna. And if you do a bit of background research, you'll see that the story of Krishna follows the same archetypal pattern as the story of Christ, as have many stories before followed this same pattern. You'll see this example over and over again throughout human history. It's the awakening of Christ, the awakening of pure divinity within the human form, within the human experience. Being equal to God, he thought it not robbery. When you start to realize that you are equal to God, you'll be tempted to glorify yourself. You'll be tempted to latch on and create an identity out of this idea that you are better, more powerful, superior to all of those around you. And this is really the final test. This is where all of this energy is leading up to as you grow, as you become more powerful, as you become bigger and bigger in your capacity. All roads lead home to the realization that you are God. And then comes the final test. So just know that your unconscious mind has brought you here to this video, has brought you to this path. These videos aren't like the other SR videos. There's a very specific frequency, very specific message that's coming through this. And you're here for a reason. So know that. And know that your unconscious mind is moral in nature. It is seeking the highest path. And as you show yourself that you are able to humble yourself through all of these tests, not becoming attached to the powers, the siddhis that begin to awaken, but continually coming back to this realization that all is God. You're not superior to any because you are everything and everyone. So how can this little body be superior just because it's got an awareness of what it really is? You need to stay aware that everyone is on that level with you. They just haven't realized it yet. And if you can do that, your unconscious, God within, the watcher at the gate, will open the floodgate, will grant you all of the power. Because when you're willing to give it all away, that's the moment that you can be trusted with it.